So this Sunday Times London, owned by Rupert Murdoch, says the price is £3. The cover price is £3 and £2. Only £2 to subscribers, based on 7-day print pack. Only £2 to subscribers, as if that makes the difference. What is the difference between the £2 and £3? £3 that we pay and £2, only £2. Because there is no difference in the lying. Look at the headline, the main heading on the Sunday Times, £3. It says the Queen won't watch the Harry and Meghan circus. Okay, let's take that as the truth. But the Sunday Times is lying. Anyone who thinks that this world exclusive diagnosis of Fleet Street, which is coming to you from London, broadcast online by the Kudilar campaign, doing the world exclusive diagnosis of Fleet Street, that we are in any way exaggerating when we say that the Fleet Street is nothing but a cesspit of lying. Now, £3, if you convert this to the local currencies in the continents, Africa and Asia, would be more than enough to feed a whole family for the day, at least, if not more than a day. So paying that amount, what do you get? You get a completely shameless lie. And we shall go through this and spell it out, the lie. Queen won't watch the Harry and Meghan circus. Now, if that is the case, so what's the point of running that story or that headline? If she won't watch it, then it doesn't matter. So why are they putting this on the front page as the main story of the Sunday Times? And then they say, angry courtiers threaten reprisals of a TV interview. Complete contradiction. I mean, if the Queen won't watch it, then her courtiers should not be watching it either, should they? That is disloyalty of the most brazen kind. But that is illogicality and stupidity of the worst kind by the Sunday Times. Then the next line is, royals plan PR blitz to counteract couples' claims. Now that's going too far, isn't it? Blitz is a Nazi's German kind of word. It's not post-Brexit British word, is it? So if the Queen herself won't watch it, then her courtiers should not be watching it either, let alone threatening reprisals, that is revenge action against Meghan and Harry over the TV interview. And then it goes on and makes it even worse. Royals plan PR blitz to counteract couples' claims. Now, they're not watching it. At least Brenda isn't watching it. So if Brenda isn't watching it, then what is the counter? How can they blitz any counteraction against the claims? And what are, quote, the claims? For a start, the interview hasn't been broadcast. So what do they know about the claims? So they suspect that the interview will contain claims, and the claims will be embarrassing, uncomfortable and inconvenient for the royal family, so-called. So this is the kind of lies that we diagnose, and you won't see that in any other channel or any other program or slot. And this is not a slot, this is a full range, widest ranging possible kind of widest possible diagnosis lasting hours. The last one, part B, lasted 2 hours, 53 minutes. And this one is going to last a significant amount of time as well. So, make a note of this, run the tape back and forth and see what I have said, and you will not find this anywhere. And this is important because the age of darkness that we are in means that humanity looks like being in the kind of daylight or living with some kind of light. But mentally, intellectually, morally, humanity is being plunged deeper every day into darkness of lying and lies. And that is why it's important to mention the verdict by the French ambassador, who was French envoy in Britain for quite a few years until she retired about 2-3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever the actual year that she retired in is immaterial. The fact that she was in post stationed in London for quite a few years shows that she observed quite closely the behavior of the British politicals, especially in this context, the behavior of Boris Johnson, because he was the one. It must have been very painful for her to watch, on behalf of our government and our country, the serial liar and congenital liar, Boris Johnson, in action. And she has not held back. I mean, she has told the BBC Radio or somebody like that Boris Johnson was a congenital liar. She was saying confidently. And it matters. I mean, when people will be looking at the behavior of Johnson et al. As the confected series of serial lies in order to extract the result at the 2016 so-called referendum by hoodwinking or easing the hoodwinkable and the gullibles, 52%, into that corner of denial and stupidity. And they actually manufactured almost on hourly basis any number of lies. One of the most nefarious and one of the most corrupt and criminal lies being that the Turks, millions of Turks were about to come into Britain, invade Britain. No chance. Because the facts are that even the other EU countries have been opposed to the Turks being allowed to become a member of the European Union. And if that is the case, then there was no question of millions of Turks invading Britain. But that acted as the most explosive provocation and scare that the gullibles kind of swallowed. And they voted 52%. And that was exactly what was intended. That is, a majority of the gullibles scared, etc., etc. There is a word that I cannot say because it's too obscene. But what it is that the gullible 52% are open-mouthed in rhetorical terms 24/7 for any kind of lies to be fed them. And that's what happened with the Turkish scare that Boris Johnson mouthed. And it was repeated in essence and substantially by the liar Michael Gove. The liar Michael Gove is connected with the Sunday Times owner, proprietor, the liar, dirty digger, Rupert Murdoch. Remember, when Trump actually arrived at the White House, one of the first people from Britain to be displayed as conducting an interview with Trump was Michael Gove. But in the video that they broadcast or published, they didn't show the real pornographers standing off camera, but directing the recording, the filming. In fact, he was the director of that particular video. And the exchange as shown between Donald Trump and Michael Gove was totally superficial and absolute pack of lies and idiocies. So what the Sunday Times is not just a headline, because without knowing all that fact that I've just outlined and summarized, the gullibles or their types would be excused if they thought that this was a kind of not a tabloid in the sense of the size, but also it was not a tabloid in terms of the contents, because it's not using the cheap and stupid words of the Murdoch owned Sun on Sunday or the Star, because they're using the words, more brazen words. The narrative is the same. That is to say, they're using similar words, but the words used by the Sun on Sunday or the Sun during the weekdays, the language differs in the kind of contents. The shock content, like nuclear war, that Meghan has declared nuclear war on the monarchy. Now that is not at all what is going on. There are some very mildly stated, fact-based observations. That's all. It's the Fleet Street playing the servant of the monarch that is going completely way out of control and out of rational control, out of reasonable control, and painting this massive contradiction. On the one hand, saying that Brenda is not even going to watch the Harry and Meghan circus, and immediately contradicting that by saying that angry courtiers, that is the staff in the palace, threatening reprisals, that is revenge activities over the same interview. That is brazen stupidity, illegality, and shamelessness. And the other thing is that, so bad and so ridiculous and so completely infantile is the whole Fleet Street obsession for demonizing and attacking Meghan Markle, that even their own kind of pocket cartoonist, Newman's View, has this kind of statement coming from the dog, that on numerous occasions, Meghan barked at me. The dog complaining that Meghan barked at the dog. Now that is really taking what they call piss with the mick. And that is exposing the whole allegation, desperate allegation, that Meghan bullied staff. So we shall go back to looking at Shamima Begum. and use the kind of comparison which I have already made. If a girl was, or a teenage girl was kidnapped, there would be all hell broken loose on the propaganda front, and there will be absolutely kind of huge, bold lettered splashes. That is the nearest form of to the newspaper shedding tears for the victim of the kidnap, because there is this softness which is justifiable because of various reasons. A girl is considered more vulnerable to attacks and abuse, etc., which has happened in real time as well, real life as well. So there would be these kind of tide of sympathy sweeping the country on the front pages of the papers if teenage girls were kidnapped or reportedly kidnapped. And this is why I turned the whole imagery upside down about Shamima Begum and said the Shamima Begum and the other three girls were kidnapped. And what would be the level of sympathy and concern for them? And this is what has happened to them is like they're being kidnapped. Because nobody knows who did what to them and over how long a period and what were they thinking and how desperate were they, or how desperate would they be if they were being kidnapped. That is to say, taken away from their home, the comfort and the protection of their home. Normally, a home and the family is the place for getting comfort and protection. I say that because not every home, every house is safe for the child or the children, or especially for girls. Because as I have said, many of the girls are abused by their family or in their family, by members of the family, or through the collusion and complicity of the members of the family. And I'm talking about Bangladeshi girls. I'm talking about Muslim Bangladeshi girls being abused. And I'm talking about that abuse taking place in Tower Hamlets. And I'm talking about that being done, that being the case going on. And this is not a kind of imagery being put upside down by me. This is actual real accounts. Many girls in Tower Hamlets, Bangladeshi families, have been sexually abused. I can't put it more bluntly. Now, what does it say about the local Tower Hamlets Council? It hasn't done any safeguarding for those victims of sexual abuse by their own families or through their own families. Think about what I'm saying. I'm talking about Shamima Begum being betrayed, let down by Tower Hamlets Council, which owed her and her friends clear, legally defined, serious safeguarding the children duties. If the same council has been allowing sexual abuse by families and through families and by other families of Bangladeshi Muslim girls being done in Tower Hamlets for many years, then the same Tower Hamlets Council cannot be realistically, practically expected to do anything for the safeguarding of these children, this Shamima Begum and her friends. Simply because Tower Hamlets Council then, because of the other sexual abuse being allowed, and no real action taken by the council to stop the abusers and the abuses, it means that the Timeless Council could not realistically be expected to do anything to safeguard the children like Shamima Begum and others. I'm saying realistically, not legally. Of course, they were legally expected, but in practical terms, they could not be expected protection brought about by the actions of the Timeless Council. That means the Timeless Council overall is an unfit council sinking into the darkness, into the depth of darkness of denial and depravity because it is colluding. When it is known to be colluding with the cases or with the activities of sexual abusers who are members of the community, members of the same family where the abused children, the girls, are members of the same family, then expecting the same council, to have in place any real measures to monitor what is happening to the children, like the Shamima Begum case shows and her friends. And that is what is happening now. Is it something that is only happening now, or is it something that could be traced to be happening for a very long time? And I would go back to saying that it is something that has been going on for a very long time. Now, where are the so-called kind of auditing and accountability moves, measures, and steps? Tower Hamlets Council cannot have any measures to safeguard children because there is no auditing, there is no kind of holding to account mechanism, and there is no person who has shown any commitment to carry out the safeguard the children duties at any stage, let alone to even theoretically suggest that members of the same families in the Bangladeshi community are known to have or have been sexually abusing, raping girls in their families and stopping the girls from escaping. It's not happening just once. It has been happening more than once to many children, many girls. Now, anyone watching this for the first time needs to know that the person incumbent in the post, that is in post, incumbent means in post or having been in post in the particular post for a significant time or the relevant time. The person who has been incumbent in the corrupt, the criminal, and the lying post of elected executive mayor since 11th of June 2015 is called John Biggs. And John Biggs was described by a Guardian writer in April 2018 as the diminutive John Biggs. And that is correct. He is diminutive, but in the common language, not the language of the Guardians, let's say, he would be called a midget. I would call him a midget, and I would call him a midget, even more of a midget based on his completely depraved and corrupt denial of moral duties and obligations on all things. So this executive mayor post holder is in that post while all these girls are being abused. You cannot then expect this immoral person, John Biggs, to have any concern about the victims or whatever the children, Shamima Begum and her friends, went through. Now, there are, in addition to being the post of elected mayor, there are, of course, various elected councillors. Now, if Tower Hamlets had intelligent and enlightened and educated and kind of councillors in place, they are not, but if they had been intelligent, considerate, and caring, then they would be asking the questions that they should have been asking of the elected mayor, whoever it was. Because previous to John Biggs coming into the post on the 11th of June 2015, there was until 23rd of April 2015 in post as incumbent elected executive mayor Lutfur Rahman. And Lutfur Rahman was in place since the last kind of week of October 2010, when he got in by the so-called election. So from the moment of his taking office in October 2010 and until he was ousted, kicked out by Election Commissioner Richard Morey on the 23rd of April 2015, Lutfur Rahman was legally responsible for safeguarding the children. But can anyone remember any mention of this during those 6 calendar years? I think they cannot, because Lutfur Rahman never made any comment about the safeguarding the children duties as owed to the children, whoever the children were. It so happens that the safeguarding duty was betrayed to were all Bangladeshis and all girls, most vulnerable, these children at the time, by any definition. So why did Lutfur Rahman betray these girls? It's not a question of did he or did he not. He did. He betrayed the girls. And what did Ohid Ahmed? Because Ohid Ahmed, as the so-called deputy mayor and the councillor supposedly in place for safety, community safety. What did community safety mean? And on how many occasions during his years as the de facto deputy and the de facto community safety post holder, how many times did Ohid Ahmed include the duty owed by him as the post holder, owed by the council as the council under safeguarding children duties? How many minutes did enter the phrase safeguarding children duties, and on how many dates, and with what message on the record? These are very important things. And what I am saying is that there is a pattern based on the evidence of the behavior of various Tower Hamlets councillors and council kind of directors and post holders. It is a it's a persistent pattern by Tower Hamlets Council as the negligent council in denial, and corruptly operated, corruptly fronted Tower Hamlets Council. And that is Why the safeguarding the children duties? Why are neglected and the girls are betrayed? So why did the kind of so-called licensed trader or traders allegedly instructed on behalf of Shamima Begum or on behalf of our family or on behalf of one of our parents, if not the two, because the father has reportedly been shown to be no longer living in the UK. Let's put it this way, because we don't know the actual extent of the absence from home in Bethnal Green of the father. And there has been hardly any mention of our mother. There has been a very kind of limited mention of one of our sisters, Shamima Begum's. But apparently, the father has been living in Bangladesh, and mother presumably is not able to articulate or is not able to emotionally control herself. So therefore, this ex-policeman, Babu, and her elder sister have reportedly spoken, at least to some of the media. And as far as the reports of those kind of conversations by Shamima Begum's elder sister with some of the reporters, if even those are true, and I'm saying this because it might be the conversation in transcripts would be longer than has been the case with the extracts. And what the question is, or the questions would include, is what did the council do in the period, say, October 2010, and up to this week, up to last week, when Shamima Begum's kind of application against the Home Office was doubly rejected. And where are the members of the family? I mean, what kind of credibility can be given to a very intimidated family? Because the family can only have been intimidated, under intimidation, either by the direct mention of Shamima Begum on the day of this particular hearing in the Supreme Court, or they went there without her feeling any kind of intimidation. But the facts are that Town Council, councillors level, council employees level, council directors level, and council's executive elected mayors level, Tower Hamlets Council has been in denial generally. It's a council in denial, it's a corrupt council, and there is no two way about it. That's what it is. For example, when those other girls, not Shamima Begum or her friends as other girls, but those other girls who have been sexually abused by members of their family, it could be, and it must be very close, like fathers, uncles, whatever, have been raping their own children or their nieces. And there is no outcry, there is no admission. In the so-called ethnicity-linked so-called newspapers that have been published from addresses mainly in Tower Hamlets, except this particular corruptly owned and corruptly abused channel, Channel S, which we say the slave channel. Well, the word S would would be usable for a whole number of reasons. But the main behavior of the Towners Council remains one of denial. So look at this. If they deny that anyone else other than the girls themselves, if they deny that anyone else other than the girls themselves was in any way, shape, or form involved with whatever process they went through, then on what human basis can it be expected that these girls, assuming the other two have been killed while in Syria? Now, the phrase have been killed doesn't implicate these girls in any crime. As I have said before, Shamima Begum has not been charged with any offense, nor has any of the other two girls been charged with any offense. And the fact that they put her kind of naturally earned citizenship on the same level as the other citizenship categories, which are maintained for people who apply and get naturalized citizenship or other kind of connected citizenship. Because what she has put on the internet, on the kind of her own kind of take on that interview with the National Union of Journalists. Well, that interview, members of the National Union of Journalists, they had certain standards. But in covering the so-called interviews with them, they have not made substantial evidence available for kind of sharing objectively. But that kind of thing hasn't happened. So the Towners Council has been and remains submerged in denial. Now, I'm the person who organized the Kudila campaign, of which this campaign against the elected mayor post remains the vital part. So there is no accountability process in place, not just for safeguarding children duties, but over any of the other duties that the council is in existence to deliver. And then it is made worse by the fact that inside the Bangladeshi community and among the voters, there exists no forum through which to hold the council to account. And so these serial kind of corrupt gaps have contributed to the creation of the image of Towners Council now as a council with moral liabilities and with no capacity to actually discharge the liabilities. I shall go to the point of talking about as an incident which prompted me to coin the phrase prima facie non-entitlement. as I said before, is a combination of English and Latin. And it's my way of describing the actual operation of the process of racism. For example, the bias and the refusal to provide service, the refusal to deny service that is otherwise legally owed. And that is done by prima facie non-entitlement. That is to say, by looking at the person who looks like they're African or they're Asian. And so therefore, on that basis alone, the person is denied of the service that the denier owes in all the rest of the circumstance, except that the person who does the doing of the denial of service is behaving illegally, and that is the pattern in Township Council. I went to a place that used to be called the Cheviot House, a building in Commercial Road, and the purpose of my visit to the Cheviot House on that particular occasion was to represent the case of a family which had housing overcrowding and needed a place to house the whole family without overcrowding, because that would be necessary for the children, 2 boys in the family, school-age boys, to do their studies in proper space. But the woman, who was a white woman, probably in her just before she reached the retirement age at that time, white woman with the curly hair and wearing glasses and sitting at the counter at the time that I went there, said to the question that the family needed enough space, including for allowing these 2 boys enough space to do their studies because they were at school. And this woman, curly-haired white woman, almost near the retirement age, and if you can imagine the picture literally, you can do that. That's why I've given the curly hair and other things about her description. Now, this woman very quickly said the family shouldn't have such brainy children then. Now, she would never say that in a million years if she knew that the children of the family were white European. And this bias then goes, bias against duty, doing the duty, and the bias and the propensity to blame the victim of the bias and the negligence by Township Council dates back decades. So Shamima Begum, at the time that this conversation took place, Shamima Begum, of course, was not even born, because the conversation took place sometime in the 1970s. And Shamima Begum was born probably in late 1990s, a year or 2 years after the so-called landslide victory of May 1997 that Tony Blair kind of is credited with. So whatever the actual year, the point is that that time would be even probably before Shamima Begum's mother could have been born or something like that because it was happening in the 1970s. So the Tower Hamlets Council has been a council in denial on all kinds of duties. Notice what I'm saying and notice how extensive this description is and wide, how wide ranging this analysis and diagnosis is. It's not anecdotal and it's not most certainly based on some kind of independent scholarly investigation work that has been done on this council. It is much more authentic than that, much more original than that, and so on. So, Tower Hamlets Council, regardless of the kind of gender orientation of the particular personnel in post for delivering the safeguarding the safety, safeguarding children duties, Tower Hamlets Council has been in denial of all duties. So we shall be looking at the evidence more.